Hi and welcome back to the course. Remember our simple Flask application? Now we're going to extend that to show the endpoints that we looked at in the very last presentation. We're going to simulate an online store using Flask. There were a couple of things that we discussed. That post was used to receive data, and the get was used to essentially send data back only. Remember, from the browser's perspective, this is the opposite. The browser will use post to send us data, and it will use get to receive data. But here we are not a browser, we are a server. So when we receive a post request, that means we are receiving some data, and therefore we have to deal with it. And when we receive a get request, that means that we have to send data back. For example, we may receive post store, and that means that we have to probably create a store. We may receive get store, and that means we have to send back a list of stores. So the endpoints that we're going to create are post for store, and this is the data that we're going to receive is a name. We're going to create get of store slash string name, get for stores. We're going to create post for a store string, string name item, and also get for store string name item. So what these endpoints are going to do is the first one is going to create a new store with a given name. The second one is going to get a store for a given name, and it's going to return some data about it. The third one is going to return a list of all the stores. The fourth one is going to create an item inside a specific store with a given name, and the last one is going to get all the items in a specific store. This one will also have a name and a price, for example. Okay. So I'll create an example of a post request and of a get request for you, and then I'll expect you to create the rest. So for the first post request, well, we know how to create an endpoint. It is at app.root, and in here, before we put a /, that was the root of our application, the home page. Now we want to put it as /store, because that is what this endpoint is. Therefore, our browser or our web application or our whoever is really calling our API is going to call this endpoint. However, it has to be a post. By default, when you use app.route, that is a get request. And browsers by default only do get requests. So we're going to need to say, comma, methods equal post. So this defines our route as being /store and as being accessible only via a post request. If we want it to be accessible via a get request as well, then we could do post and get. So then this endpoint could be called either via post or via get. We will look at how that works later on in the course. Then we have to associate a method with it, and in this case I'm going to call the method createStore. And it's not going to do anything for now, but we will make it do stuff later on. To get the store, well, fairly simple. I'm sure you can do it yourself, so if you think you can, pause the video now and give it a go, and if not, just keep watching and I will implement it here. To get a store, we'll have app.root /store /string name. This is a special Flask bit of syntax, which means that when we create our method can have a parameter which is name. This name here has to match this one here. And therefore, when we receive a request such as http://107.0.0.1 /5000 /store some name is going to be this name here. So the name variable will contain some name. If we have a store that has that name, we're going to be able to return it using that as a key. Okay, so this is also going to pass. And then, this is just going to apply for really the rest of them. And this one is only store, so it doesn't need the string name, and it also is not going to have a parameter. For the post, we're going to copy this one up here, and it's going to have string name /item. Make sure to not forget any of these little bit of syntax there, because that can be quite confusing for Flask if you do that. And finally, we're going to have something like this for down here. Remember to change the method names as well, because they have to be unique. So I'm going to call this method getItemInStore, because that's essentially what this is going to do. It's just going to retrieve all the items in a specific store. For this one is going to be createItemInStore. For this one is going to be getStores, and this one is going to be getStore. This one is going to be createStore. So these are our endpoints. So we've got our 5 endpoints now, as we discussed in the last presentation, and all we have to do now is really implement them. So how do we implement them? Well, we first of all need a way to store our stores. So that can be, for example, something like a list. And our stores can be an empty list initially, and then it can have a dictionary in it. And the dictionary is going to have a name, and the name is going to be, for example, my wonderful store. And it's also going to have a list of items. And each item is going to have a name, such as my item, and a price, such as $15.99. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense. I'm just going to clean this up a bit for you, so it's a bit easier to understand what's going on. Okay, so our stores list is going to contain a list of dictionaries. So here we've got one dictionary, but we could have many. Each dictionary has a name, such as our stores do, and the name in this case is my wonderful store, and it also has a list of items. And in this case, items is a list, so we can have many other dictionaries in here, and each dictionary is going to have a name and a price. We could do this with object-oriented programming if we wanted, and we're going to explore how to do that later on, of course. And also, normally, we would be storing these things to a database, but in order to simplify things and just teach you the basics of a REST API, we're going to stick to having a dictionary here in memory. So hopefully that's all right, and in the next video we're going to look into implementing these endpoints. So I'll see you there.